Welcome, foolish mortals, to the Haunted Mansion. Kindly step all the way in, please, and make room for everyone. There's no turning back now.
All right, welcome to our Haunted Mansion panel. I'm obviously Sean, whichever direction here's my name. Why don't we just go around the block, everybody introduce yourselves and say what it is about the Haunted Mansion that just kind of hooks you. I love it.
All right, I'm Madeline, and my love for the Haunted Mansion goes back to the earliest memories in childhood. I had a Disneyland sing-along VHS that I watched all the time, and Grinning Ghosts was one of the songs on there, and I've always been drawn to the kind of spooky, macabre, just ambiance of the Haunted Mansion. So my love goes back to hearing the song as a little kid.
My name is Grace. I am a new addition to the Haunted Mansion fan club because I didn't go to Disney World until I was in high school. But when I did, I fell in love with the ride, the aesthetic of it. I love Halloween. It is such a perfect blend of spooky and of just fun that I'm intrigued by it. Every time we go, I have to ride it at least 5 times.
All right, I'm Kristen, and I'm kind of newish. I guess I would say I went to Disney World for the first time when I was 12, but the first time I really appreciated the Haunted Mansion was my trip in 2015. So yeah, I've always been drawn to more spooky stuff rather than scary stuff, and just the effects and everything in the mansion is just so cool to me, and I love the theories that can spawn from it. So that's why I love it.
Well, I'm still Sean. I grew up on Disney, so of course, I learned as much trivia about everything as I could, but it wasn't really until my 20s. My mother was a travel agent who specialized in Disney vacations, and so they gave her travel agent discounts to go to Disneyland in California, where you got to see a lot more of the feel of the old school Imagineers and the original rides and Walt's touches on things. And it was in September, so it was a low peak season. And when you go to Disneyland for about 4 days in a row, you get to ride the rides over and over. And so that was where I really absorbed the Haunted Mansion. There is just something special about this ride. There's a story richness to it.
I agree.
So let's go back to 1951. The Walt Disney is saying we need to add this section to Disneyland where there's the Harper Goff or Groff, I can't read my handwriting, drew this path that led away from all the fun and festivities to a dilapidated mansion where it was going to be kind of a walk-through attraction. Of course, theme parks were known for having this kind of spook house ride where things jump out at you, and it made sense why Disneyland would have one of those. But I think they'd already done sort of the jumping at you ride with Snow White. Mm-hmm. So Walt says, let's assign it to 2 different creators. Let's see what we come up with. And I don't think Walt really knew what he wanted. So everybody was just kind of figuring it out. So what do y'all know about the origins of the ride?
My understanding and things that I've read is that a lot of it started off, like you were talking about, in 1951. It just started as a concept drawing, dilapidated house, but of course Walt did not want anything dilapidated in his parks, so he really reached out to a lot of his Imagineers. There are several that are involved in the history of the Haunted Mansion's creation and how wildly it's changed across all the hands it's been passed through. Because, we mentioned 1951 were the first ideas of the Haunted Mansion, but the Haunted Mansion didn't open until 1969, and Walt died in 1966, so he never got to see the Haunted Mansion as it was then and what it is today. So it was originally supposed to be, like you were saying, that walkthrough. But by the time it got to different Imagineers, they realized that in the parks, it wouldn't be feasible to do a walkthrough. You just wouldn't get enough people through the attraction. So that's why they put it on the Doom Buggy ride system. And there are a lot of people who were involved in it who wanted, I know it's funny that you mentioned that, Christian and Grace, being more drawn to the things that are like more of the fun, spooky instead of scary, because there were two very different personalities in some of the Imagineers who wanted it to be scary, some of them who wanted it to be silly. And so Ex Atencio is probably the one that gets referenced the most in regards to the concept and how everything came together, the Grinning Ghosts song, writing the script. So it was really able to come together and provide both of those aspects. And that's, a lot of the reason why we love the Haunted Mansion today. Anybody else got some fun history factoids?
No.
Okay.
You pretty much got it covered.
Yeah, Sean and I were talking beforehand. Yeah, we were having a conversation. We're like, okay, we got to stop talking because we've got to save this for the panel.
It's right taps into something. It's like that Halloween thrill that you have, or you just in the workroom. We were like, and Raleigh Crump, and the Pepper's Ghost thing, and Eddie Murphy, and we just wouldn't shut up.
It was just like one run-on sentence that didn't really make a lot of sense. I was going to say, because I know this is technically part one, we didn't do good for our ghost host behind the scene, and that, what we wanted to talk about first is this haunted room actually stretching, or is it your imagination? That's where the Imagineers come in. It's what we see is the process from what it was supposed to be a walkthrough to what we have now. And I think a lot of the magic comes from everything that the Imagineers wanted to throw into it, and everything that got used or things that didn't get used that you'll see in other rides or in other attractions, or a nod to this concept that didn't quite get the green light, but it was still really important. Sean mentioned the Pepper's Ghost is the illusion in the ballroom scene, and it just blew my mind as a kid. Who doesn't love the ballroom scene? If it's any of y'all can leave the panel, please. What do y'all think? What's your favorite, as far as magic goes, and the spookiness and the creativity behind it? What's your favorite sequence?
I would 100% agree with the ballroom scene. The Pepper Ghost effect is just wow. Pepper Box, I forget.
Pepper's Ghost. No, you're right.
Okay, Pepper's Ghost. Yeah, because I remember the first time I saw it, and I knew it was one of the original attractions, and so it was using technology from the 60s, and I was not expecting a whole lot, but when I saw the ballroom scene, I was actually taken aback, just going, oh my gosh, how did they do that? And of course my husband was like, well, you see, and I was like, yeah.
You're like, no, I didn't want it explained.
But I also, aside from that scene, am really impressed with the singing busts. I know that that's a type of technology that they have worked on and incorporated in other rides, like the Buzz Lightyear ride, and in the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, they've done the projection faces, but they were doing it earlier in Haunted Mansion before. I can't remember if they've updated it or not, but even old footage I've seen, it's still really impressive to me.
Yep.
Leota uses the same technology, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep.
My favorite, I do love the ballroom scene, especially when I was a kid, because it's like you mentioned, it's like, how do they do that? When I was 12, I didn't know the first time I saw it, but it's like, it's just a really cool scene. And there's so many things that, I mean, I've ridden the ride so many times, and I still find things and new, like, ghostly apparitions in that scene that I didn't notice before. Or that I don't pay attention to as much. Leota is my girl, so her scene is always gonna be my favorite. I love Maleficent. That's Maleficent's voice actor. Come on. So, but yeah, I love the ballroom scene and all the little Easter eggs and things that you really have to pay attention to in order to see.
Yeah, I feel like I see something different every time I ride the ride. And I'll find myself looking like into the background instead of the things that are right in front of you. I'm trying to find something I haven't seen before, and because it's a new thing each time you ride it. And I would kick myself later if I did not mention the one factoid I have about the ballroom scene is that the animatronics, how they're positioned under you, when they're dancing, they're dancing as you normally would with the male leading, but when it gets translated through the projection with the light and the glass and everything, the women are actually leading because it's been, it's turned around. And so everybody kind of picked up on that when the ride debuted, and people went to Exitensio and were like, hey, you're the females are leading the men. Why is that happening? And he kind of knew that it was a mishap with the animatronics, but he was just like, because they're ghosts. Like, brilliant.
Dead, some things don't matter anymore.
Yeah. So I know we've been talking a lot about the ride as it feels. So Sean actually put together a ride-through video for us. If you're watching this evening and you haven't been on the ride, or maybe you need a refresher, we have just the thing for you. So roll that ride-through.
In the history of theme parks, no single attraction is captured as devoted a fan base as Disney's Haunted Mansion. Perhaps its tours entice us because of a perfect balance of dark humor and macabre images. Or maybe it's a whole ride built on ghost story exposition, providing just enough information to raise questions, but not enough to answer them. Similar to a tombstone epitaph that can only provide a single snapshot of a deeply layered narrative. For whatever reason, the mansion beckons us to explore it time and time again. Here then is a run-through of its halls at breakneck speed, probably not the best choice of words. We begin in the foyer with a nod to the picture of Dorian Gray and the famous aging portrait of a man often thought to be, no first name given, Gracie, master of the house, although there is much evidence to suggest otherwise. Moving forward into the iconic stretching room, we're presented with a theme of the mundane masking the tongue-in-cheek horror lurking just behind the scrim. Depending on where you are, in one order or another, you find yourself the subject of interest in the portrait gallery or disinterest in the loading area. Moving deeper through the library, we're greeted by the shadow of a musician and a newly renovated Escher-esque stairwell after having cleared out the cobwebs. Arachnophobia warning. And we're back, just in time to catch a glimpse of the floating candelabra halfway down an endless hallway, a sentence incompatible with the laws of geometry. And in a very rare stroke of luck, you might be greeted by the infamous Night of the Living Dead, who always created more problems than he was worth. The Raven. In the first of between 4 and 5 appearances, the Raven was meant as co-narrator because, what makes this ride awesome? More talking. A lot happens in the conservatory between the reluctant corpse and the Nosferatu hand clock, so it's time for Madame Leota, the ride's unsung hero, to bring some organization to the chaos. And right there is the phantom called Purpley Shroud, a fan favorite, because the ballroom has everything you'd expect from a Victorian-era celebration. Music, dancing, food, people trying to kill each other, and a chandelier daredevil named Pickwick. We now come to the heart of the attraction. Ha! Kill me. Again, poor word choice. The Attic Bride was the first story conceived for the Haunted Mansion, and as such has been through the most incarnations. There's the Wraith-like version, the more innocent bluish one, Constance Hatchway, the Black Widow Bride, and the one standing behind Tony Baxter, You're a Brave Man. This may be the only existing footage of the Hatbox Ghost as it appeared when the ride first opened, discontinued because the lighting in the attic ruined the effect. The original animatronic disappeared, and to this day, no one knows where it is. Ooh. Here's the new one. And finally, we arrive at the largest set piece, the graveyard scene. The Phantom 5, the singing bus, the cycling banshees, this thing, and an overriding sense that any fears we have about death are really just the doorway to the after party, and any jump scares we've experienced from the denizens are all meant in good fun for them. In the end, the Haunted Mansion is about accepting the inevitable, the Omega dance, and facing it with a smile or a tear or both. To quote Dexter Holland, what a nightmare come true or a playground if we choose. We are bid a fond farewell for the time being, with the gift of an invisible companion to walk us out and a promise that the mansion will remain open house, where it's Halloween every night and there will always be room for us there.
Yeah.
Oh, that is such a
very good.
Such a fantastic video. So let's hear about the full experience. So this is our next part to discuss. Is we find it delightfully unlivable here in this ghostly retreat. Someone, not me and Sean. How does the ride feel like a full experience to you?
So I know we've talked and touched a little bit on how there were two different creators, and there was the group who was like, oh, this needs to be scary. It needs to really send you chills down your bones. And then the other group that's like, we can have a pratfall here. I love that combination, because when I go in the Haunted Mansion, like, you go in and it's just kind of eerie. And then like the hallway starts breathing, and the you hear the clattering of the handles, and then my favorite also with the shadow of the Nosferatu hand on the clock. I always get chills, and it's just kind of like, this is what it would be like if you walked into a Haunted Mansion and you didn't see the ghosts. And so it's really cool, because like my mind's playing tricks. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so scared. And then you enter Madame Leota's seance room, and then she's like, let's get the friendly vibrations out. Let's see all the ghosts. And then once you see the ghosts, it's a party, because like you can see them almost playing pranks on you. And I think that was done so seamlessly. I love the transition of those feelings, because when you leave the ride, you had a wonderful spooky experience, but you're not like, the whole time as you walk back out, in my case, into the Magic Kingdom. And it reminds me of like a SpongeBob episode where they got invisibility spray. And like SpongeBob and Patrick aren't scary, but when they're invisible, they're really scary. I was like, ghost. And I just feel like it has that same kind of feel. It's very tongue in cheek. It's like, oh yeah, we're scary, we're spoopy, ghosts are terrifying. And then like you see the ghost, and it's like, just kidding, it's all a party. Yeah. And I love that.
Mm-hmm. Basically what Grace said. I've always loved that vibe, I guess is a good way to say it. Like, just eerie and macabre, but like, he's got some, jokes in there at the very beginning in the stretching room where he's like, but there's always my way out, and maybe it's a little gruesome, but it fits the vibe. It's just from the very beginning, you're kind of just sucked in and true to Disney form. It's like, if you've ever stayed on property at Walt Disney World, they say the Disney bubble. Well, I think that's true, especially in the Haunted Mansion, because it really is like you are entering into a world, and you come out and it's like, oh, I'm back in the Magic Kingdom, but I thought I was in this, Southern Gothic mansion. And there's so many things to look at and take in, and I don't know. I hate true haunted houses, like Aatrox and all that. So Haunted Mansion is my jam. I'm such a wuss. Like, no jump scares or anything, just spooky good fun.
When you compare the Haunted Mansion to like the rides in Fantasyland, like Snow White or Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, those are designed to Yeah, those are designed to cram a 90-minute story into about 2.5 minutes. And so you're going through and it's like, and then there's the suit of armor, and then there's the alligator. And so everything is just kind of coming at you like a traditional spook house. But Haunted Mansion and Pirates are designed to be a much slower pace. So you just kind of get absorbed into it. And it's interesting how Haunted Mansion's ride doesn't start for the first couple of minutes. You go in the foyer area and you feel like you're already on the ride, even though you're just in a waiting room. And then you go in the stretching room, and then there's some time spent in there. And you got another little bit of an extra line, which you don't really mind because you're inside.
Yeah.
And then you get going, and you have the first part of the ride where first the focus is on you, where the eyes are following you and the busts are following you. And then you go into the section of the ride where the ghosts don't seem to really care that you're there anymore because they're all just kind of in their own little worlds. And then it gels into the graveyard scene. So you feel like you've been through this kind of abstract story.
Right. I thought that what y'all said about like the Disney bubble and the ride not starting until a few minutes in, the opposite kind of is that the ride starts when or the experience for me starts the moment you come to that first cast member who is in the costume and a very straight-faced, the way that they enter you into that ride, they're really welcoming you into the experience that is the Haunted Mansion. I have an example. I went one year and I had a Haunted Mansion magic band, and I had gotten a fast pass for it because of course I got a fast pass for Haunted Mansion. And I'm at the front of my group, and I'm going up there, and I'm the first person to scan my band. And I had one of the 50th anniversary bands, and the fast pass little like orb started lighting up and playing Grinning Ghosts. And I looked at it, and I looked at the attendant, or I guess it was like one of the attendants for the ride, and he was just standing there so stoic. And I was like, oh, he played music. I was so excited. And he looked down at me. I feel like he was 90 feet tall. He looked down at me and he said, or was it just your imagination?
Oh.
And I was like, I love this ride. And so that's the bubble. That's the experience. It's nonstop from the second you're standing in line until you leave. And even after you leave, the ride or the experience isn't over because you go through the little pet cemetery or go past the pet cemetery, which is just one of the cutest things ever. And the reason, of course, I said RIP about the Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. The Mr. Toad tombstone is my favorite. I thought it was adorable that they added him in there. And then, so you're getting the full experience from the time you talk to one of the attendants. You go through the interactive queue that isn't terribly old. You go through the queue and stand in the hot Orlando sun, and then you are greeted with a very nice breath of fresh air as the doors open. So experience through and through.
I always love the fact that when you go to Disney World, if everybody's doing their job correctly, it's all happy and warm and everything. And you've got the Hello Dolly music playing on Main Street. And if you're a miserable human being like I am, it just gets to the point where you're like, I cannot stay in this environment. I need the Haunted Mansion and the crowd and the darkness. And
I had always thought that if I was a cast member, like that's probably where they would end up putting me, just so I could be like, welcome, foolish mortal, all day long.
Well, it's also impressive too, because like the audios too, like Sean, you mentioned the Dolly, Hello Dolly music on Main Street. You don't notice, but like as soon as you get into that corner where Haunted Mansion is, like you hear like dogs howling and like the cause, and it's so quiet in comparison to the rest of the parks. I'm always thrown off. Like, I know the Haunted Mansion is close because I just hear nothing.
Yeah.
That's very true. All right. So
when we're talking about this panel, you have raised a really good question. It's like, what is your favorite part of the ride, and what is your least favorite part of the ride, either past or present? Did I jump on your question?
no, I totally forgot that I had done that. So now I got to come up with a new answer.
Well, it wasn't a very good question. Anyway.
Somebody else go first.
Since I'll give y'all a chance to think. I'll mention what my favorite part of the ride. It's a little thing, but I really like the candelabra that floats, because that.
Oh yeah.
It's the first time you really get to see like a character, even though you don't get to see the character. You're like, something's going on. Is this a servant who's looking for something? Is this a lost soul? But it's just like, I want to get out of the buggy and go explore the hallway more. My least favorite part of the ride, it was the spiders, and partially because I'm arachnophobic, but also because it was a huge waste of space. And fortunately, they jettisoned it and put in the MC Escher staircases, which I think is a much better use.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree. Who's up next? Favorite and least favorite?
My favorite is, like I said before, Leota, her room. Because I think I don't know, there's just something mysterious about her. We don't have a lot of backstory on her. So how did she get to be a ghost in a crystal ball? What's up with the flying instruments? Stuff like that. So there's a lot of mystery to her, but also kind of glamour, which is why I like her. And then my least favorite, and I'm sure I'll get some haters, I hate the attic scene with Hatchaway.
I hate it. I can't stand it.
I think the animatronic and the projection just aren't that great. And I think just going through the different till death, the do us part, and bringing the hatchet up, or the different, marriage and death puns gets a little old. Maybe that's just because it seems like every time I get stuck, it's like right there or backwards going down into the graveyard. So I just get sick of it. But yeah, and I feel like they could add more stuff to that space to make it a more interesting space instead of her be the focal point. So that's definitely my least favorite.
Grace?
My favorite was going to be the candelabra. Thank you, Sean. I guess another one of my favorites, though, is the piano player, where the piano keys go down, but you see the shadows. And, like, you watch it, it's not the smoothest. It's old technology, but I love it. It's just very classic. Yeah, Christian, exactly. Just the piano player, I'm like, that's wrong. It's fine. My least favorite, and it's not because it's not well done. It's because it's so well done. It's actually the busts that follow you. That creeps me out too much. Like I'm just looking at them like, and I know how they work, and that even makes it worse. I'm just like, no, don't like that.
I feel that. I was afraid that Grace was going to take my other favorite, because I was like, oh yeah, the ballroom scene, but I already talked about, the candelabra. Sean said that. The stretching portraits, that whole room, it was always the scariest to me, because you are standing still. If you're riding rides, you know that nothing is going to jump out and actually physically touch you on any ride in Disney World. But when you're standing in that room with the lights out and you're watching these portraits, and that's where it does combine the two worlds of scary and silly, is that there is something happening in this room. It's dark, and you know that there's somebody in there with you, lots of other people too. There's the mystery. The room starts stretching, and you see these really beautiful portraits, but then they stretch, and it's like, oh, these are all horrible deaths, or alluding to people who have died, or other stories that are part of the Haunted Mansion. But they're also funny too, like, standing over, an open mouth of an alligator. You're on powder kegs. Like they're just funny too. But then you kind of have this actual like lightning bolt moment when they're like, "Oh, there's always my way," and you look up and there's a corpse like hanging over you. You're like, I just went through so many emotions there. I don't really know what to do. So that's one of my favorite sections of the Haunted Mansion, just even before you get on the ride proper. Least favorite, I'm gonna also say the attic with Constance. However, I liked the more, like you show in the ride through, Sean, the more wraith looking bride, and she has this, and it used to be so scary. It was actually the scariest part of the ride to me, is that you just saw this heart and these glowing eyes, and it was just boom, 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 and that's all you could hear in the room. And so it was really unsettling, but I guess that's why I don't like the way it's been changed, just because it doesn't hold up well. Even though it's newer, it's cheesy. The projection technology on the face just isn't as good as it is in other areas of the ride. So I wish, while she does have like, a backstory, I don't think they should have given her so much space, because I get stuck at that part of the ride too, and I'm just like, why couldn't I got stuck in like the ballroom scene or the graveyard? That would have been great. So
I like the fact that we can actually visit Constance from the stretching room, because it's like by the time we're in the attic, we're like, we did you already. We should be in a different story.
like we've already seen you, and that's another thing too. Are there any ghosts that end up like showing up again, like that we see in the pictures? Like, Madame Leota's tombstone is outside of the Haunted Mansion, like in the ride queue. Can y'all think of any others that show up?
I think some people have suggested that the character of Ezra, the shortest of the hitchhiking ghosts, also appears in the graveyard scene just before you get there. I don't know if that's official or if they just kind of use the same face twice.
Yeah.
But aside from that, I don't think, and I'm assuming it's supposed to be the same Raven throughout the ride.
Right. And I had never noticed the Raven until you mentioned him. And it's like, it's true. He's in every, just about every room. And you said he was supposed to be the narration.
He was supposed to co-narrate. I guess. I don't know if he was going to mimic Paul Frees's voice acting, or if he was just going to like, what he said. Or,
yeah. Okay.
My Raven impression.
I love your Raven impression. So any other comments about the full experience? I feel like that's one I could go on and on with, just because there is so much to look at. And I do have a question, and I think I mentioned this when we were talking originally, but you look at a scene like the graveyard scene. Who is your favorite ghost? Whose story do you want to know more about that you see in that scene? I'm curious.
There's so many.
I know, right? I'll go ahead and say that my the one that I want to know more about is the opera singer. She is one of my favorites. And when we look at it from the experience standpoint, you're looking at the story too, and we know that this is where all of these ghosts have come to live out their unearthly days. And part of it, and I think I mentioned this to Sean, I never did it, but they have like the Disney Vacation Club, and it's basically a timeshare. So you go on these tours to see all these places, and I'm like, this is the Disney Vacation Club beyond the grave. Like they're trying to attract us to come stay at this, I guess like retirement home. So all of these ghosts, if you're looking at a storyline, all of these ghosts chose to be like at the Haunted Mansion? Why is the opera singer there? Why are these little old men playing chess? Like, you have all of these ghosts, and I want to know their stories. So whose story do you want to know?
I like the banshees on the bicycles. Yes. I think the concept is like, this would probably be the scariest thing you would ever encounter, but you see it on a bicycle and you're just like, oh, that's awesome. I want to hang out with you dead guys.
They're having the time of their life.
Hey. I'm curious about, there's a skeleton hand that's mortaring himself up with like bricks, because I was watching a video. It was going through all the different ghosts and what they were. And there's like 2 zombies, and that's one of them, because it's technically like a corporeal form in the skeleton.
Right.
I thought it was interesting, but I also love the fact like he is holding himself up, like he's building the brick house around him, and I'm just picturing him just being like, it is so loud, I'm going to literally hold myself up here and build a brick house around me.
He's the grumpy ghost.
Yeah. He's the Oscar the Grouch of the graveyard.
Antisocial. He's like, I'm so tired of y'all. I thought there was a curfew.
I'm with Grace. I mean, every time I go through that one, that one sticks out to me the most. Just that skeleton. He's, I like to think that he just wants a nap, or he's like 1,000% done with all this hooting and hollering and singing. He's heard that song one too many times, and he's just done. He's ready for a dirt nap.
Yeah, I agree with that. He's like, I'm tired of having a swinging wake. I want to go to sleep. There's one person that we haven't mentioned. I mean, there's a lot of people, but what do we think about like the Undertaker and the dog?
Oh, poor guy. Is he a grave robber?
I don't think he's a grave robber.
Maybe saying that because he's got a dog.
But he looks scared, and it's like he's the for me, I imagine him as the groundskeeper. So what is his story like? Did he work there? Is he happening upon the graveyard? Because it's almost like he does not expect to see all of these ghosts. So maybe it's when we start seeing the ghosts, because that's the biggest, sequence with all of them in it. So I wonder about him. He stays on my mind a lot.
This can't be a new experience for him, but he's still...
You would hope not. Yeah. But he looks real scared.
But that's why I think maybe he's a grave robber, because if he's just like happening upon this grave, he's like, oh yeah, look at all these graves, and then like the ghosts come out, and he's just like, oh, because he reminds me of Horace from 101 Dalmatians.
Yes,
so
he does.
Have you guys heard the theory though that and this may be for another part of the stream, and if so, feel free to tell me to hold off, but like the theory is the whole ride is you're going through the mansion, but when you get to the attic, you're actually, the reason why you go backwards is because the bride has pushed you out a window, and so you're dying and going to join the ghosts in the graveyard, which I think is really interesting. But maybe that's why you're seeing the ghost then, because you are one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard that too. But if you also think about it too, even if it's not tied directly to Constance's story, the mere, movement of the doom buggies when they turn around and they are laying you down, it's like you're being lowered into a grave. And so that that definitely adds to it, because you're saying you've got been stuck on the ride there at one point. I'm like, if we stay on this ride much longer, I'm gonna be asleep, because I'm in a reclining position. There's air conditioning blowing directly on me. I'm gone. They're gonna have to like pull me off of the ride. So, but that does make sense. I have heard some stuff, some lore around that.
That and Spaceship Earth. I always get caught on the going down on Spaceship Earth, which is not related to Haunted Mansion, but
no, it's another, it's one of those that if it
all
stays
stars around you,
it's so creepy. Like that's way more creepier to me, because I can almost like see how far it is, or like you don't know how far it is to fall. Where along Haunted Mansion, I'm like, oh, that's not that bad a drop, but
Well, that I think that actually does segue into our last topic of the evening is the hurry back. Be sure to bring your death certificate if you decide to join us. So why do we keep coming back to the Haunted Mansion? I mean, we look at the franchise as Haunted Mansion being a franchise. We have books, movies, some not so great, some in the works. But there are all these art concepts, and just we constantly look to it. We want to create stories for all of the characters. We want to know more. What is it about the Haunted Mansion that keeps you interested and keeps you coming back for more? Like, what are you looking forward to in what is the future of the Haunted Mansion?
We love our ghost stories.
Yep.
I think I described it somewhere. I don't know if it was here or in the video, but it's the Haunted Mansion. It's kind of a ghost story anthology where you only get setting for each of these characters. You don't know their backstory. You don't know why they're dead, what their life was like. You just see where they are in this moment and what kind of mood they're in. And that by itself is enough to trigger the inner writer in you, where you're like, I am curious as to what's happened before and what the ultimate destination for this character is.
That's true. I'm going to go ahead and rip off the Band-Aid. Let's talk about the movie.
Okay.
You know, when you first announced Eddie Murphy was going to be in the Haunted Mansion, I thought they were going to cast him as the grave keeper or the grave digger. And I thought that would work really well because he would have that, just let him ad-lib his lines and react to things. And then they went the direction they went.
Right.
And we were talking earlier, if they had done a haunted house movie with Eddie Murphy and his family, I would have been fine with that. I don't think it would have been a great movie, but I wouldn't have been bothered by it.
Right.
And they may have had that script laying around, and then, well, the Pirates of the Caribbean movies are making millions and millions of dollars, so let's do a Haunted Mansion overlay onto this storyline. And it doesn't feel like a true Haunted Mansion movie.
Yeah, that's what I had said earlier, is that it's not a bad Disney, like cheesy Halloween Disney movie. It's not a bad movie when you look at it like that, but it's a terrible Haunted Mansion movie because the Haunted Mansion is just, it's almost like it's just making a cameo performance. The only person who gets a bunch of screen time is Madame Leota, and it's not great. It's not great.
I like your word. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, and I only watched it this weekend. I had made it that far without watching this movie. I was like, I'm not watching it. It's going to ruin everything. It's going to ruin it for me. And it didn't ruin it. It just let me see that, that it's a decent Halloween movie that Disney did, but it's terrible Haunted Mansion.
It ruined Facebook.
I love the word you use, Sean, for like an overlay, because what draws me back to the Haunted Mansion is the fact that you're right. There are no like definitively written stories in this ride. And I think the success of Pirates is that it follows that same trajectory in the ride. And so they took like, okay, well, let's follow this potential story that might have nods to the ride, but it not be like a generalized pirate story with a lot of like thrown in jokes and jabs. And when I watched the Haunted Mansion, if it weren't for the title or like Madame Leota or the ghosts in the scene or like Master Gracie, I wouldn't know it's Haunted Mansion related. It doesn't look like the Haunted Mansion. It doesn't feel like the Haunted Mansion. It's just like y'all said, a good Halloween movie, and I think that's generous to say it's good. I don't even think it is. And it's disappointing. I'm shocked that even the aesthetic, just the look of the mansion doesn't look right. Like it looks like a nondescript old house.
Yeah.
And ugh.
Yeah. I think that sums it up. Christian, what do you think? Have you seen the movie?
I saw it, I think, last year on Freeform during 31 Nights Out. I have seen it. I had heard how terrible it was for so long. I was like, you know what? It's a pandemic. Let's just watch it. What else is there to do? Yeah. And it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. But I think I would have preferred, like, instead of an original character with Eddie Murphy, I would have preferred to focus more on one of the ghosts that's already in there. Just something like that instead, or the Undertaker, if we wanted to go that route. But overall, it wasn't bad. I'm trying to think back, and again, I have not watched it in a long time, so forgive me. But does it feature like even the wallpaper? Like, is that something?
No.
Yeah, I mean, like, that is such an integral part. I mean, like, look, I got my little mask full of it, and
Yep, I got it tattoo. So,
It's on the bottom of my shirt, but like purple.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't remember it featuring that. I don't remember. I think I remember the Knights, but some of the great effects. Does it have the ballroom? I know that there's a ballroom scene like in the past, but does it have them as specters, ghosts in the ballroom?
The ghosts don't ever go into the ballroom.
Okay.
I feel like when it does try to introduce other characters, like just in the haunted aspect of it, they're like, oh, look, there are these people over here, and there are ghosts in the car, and those are supposed to be the hitchhiking ghosts.
That one off and...
It just happens so fast, and then it's like, oh, now we're going to continue our quest, and there are going to be like zombies and stuff that have nothing to do with the haunted mansion.
I remember that. I was like, there's no zombies.
Yep, no
I
zombies.
think that was a nod to the French version. Where they could go underground. They're trying to pull from everywhere, but
They were doing the most. Yeah. Okay.
I have heard that one is significantly scarier, though. Or like a little more horror. So, yeah.
Yeah, that one's like focusing like on a phantom that's haunting this girl who, like, and the phantom's supposed to be like her father. Spoiler alert. I read the synopsis and it's a lot scarier, but
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I guess that's also important to bring up is that the Haunted Mansion has been, even the ones that are Haunted Mansion themed, they all have like a little bit different aesthetic to them on the outside. And then, with Mystic Manor and Phantom Manor, they're just completely different stories. So I find that pretty interesting is that it's like, it's the same, but it's not the same. It's being done for different audiences. And again, I think it all goes back to what Sean said. We like ghost stories. We like creepy, scary things every now and then. And that's why it's been adapted to so many different mediums. And like I was saying, there are books, there are movies, there have been cameo performances. Like there's cameo in like Once Upon a Time and Madame Leota in it at one point. And we also have, this is something I'm super excited about. We have the Muppet Haunted Mansion like special feature that's coming out this week. Actually, it'll be out on Friday. That's a plug for Disney Plus, and they're not paying me for it. But yeah, I'm super excited to see that. I like seeing nods to it. Like I'm wearing a Haunted Mansion mashup shirt. I mean, to see it adapted to so many different forms. I mean, it's really a testament to how beloved that ride is and the story in general. Do y'all have any adaptations that you really like, that you've like seen that are clearly nods to the Haunted Mansion?
I'm super excited about the Muppets.
Yeah,
I feel like the Muppets brand of humor just fits that perfectly.
Oh yeah.
So I'm like stupid excited about that.
But the adaptation in my head, I really like. Disney, if you're watching, waiting to shut us down for this, this is for free. Do the Haunted Mansion as a series.
Yes.
Like 8 episode, 10 episode, what have you. You don't want to do a Haunted Mansion story where the curse is lifted at the end because nobody wants the curse lifted. They like the curse.
Curse.
But if you do it in a series, you can have individual storylines where some of the ghosts resolve whatever their issue and then move on, while you have your other cast of characters that's going to stay there well beyond the end of the series. So that, like I say, that's for free.
Free ideas.
I don't know if this would count as an adaptation, but there is a Haunted Mansion board game that I am obsessed with. It is actually incredibly fun to play, but more so, I love all the nods in the game. Mm-hmm. The box itself, if you lift the lid, it has like the ceiling and the stretching portraits, and along the side, it has the changing portraits. And the artwork is, you can tell it was done by someone who truly loves this ride and appreciates it. And I love just going through the cards and looking at all the different ghosts. There are 99 of them, and I'm just like, this is amazing. So that's my favorite.
What?
Well, what?
Is that the Call of the Spirits game, or is it a different one?
Is it one we own in the children's department in our?
Yes, it is the one we have in the children's department.
Yeah, I've checked it out. I checked it out and I didn't get to play it, but mostly I just wanted to look in the box and read through. Is it like the rooms, it rotates? Is that what it is?
Yeah. It's so cool. Yeah, because like
and you're the little ghosts?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really cool. It has the hitchhiking ghost too as a little they actually play a part. They haunt you, and so like you can pick up haunt cards, and so I figure that's the same as like the hitchhiking, like they end up in the buggy with you.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun, and it's perfect for spooky season.
Yeah. Which is just life in general for some of us. Spooky season, eternal spooky season.
Yeah.
I'm pretty excited as far as looking towards the future of the Haunted Mansion. I'm really excited to see a new movie. And I feel like Disney at this point should realize the stakes. Like the stakes are very, very high for this to be a success. So I feel like they've probably had many, many years of listening to devoted Haunted Mansion fans saying, and this is something all of us have said, anybody we talk to who isn't on this panel tonight, we want story. We want story and we want atmosphere, just like what we feel when we're on the ride. We want that to be, we want that in an expanded form. I picked up books that I thought were going to be, because it was like, there's and I'm not saying it's bad, it just wasn't what I expected, but there's actually a children's series of books that are like the Haunted Mansion books. I thought it was going to be more about the ghosts, but it's more of that anthology horror done in a book, and the librarian from the Haunted Mansion is just presenting them almost like the Crypt Keeper from Tales from the Crypt. He introduces the short scary story. So I mean, I feel like we see those nods to the Haunted Mansion in a lot of different things that Disney does or other people pick up on. So I think the story is what we're looking for. So hopefully Disney gets it right this time. I will also say there's, I just found this out. There's like a graphic novel series that's more of a nod to the weirder aspects and the bizarre that one of the Imagineers, Rolly Crump, came up with. His was supposed to be part of like more of a wax museum, really bizarre stuff. And so there's a graphic novel series based more on his concepts with that didn't make it into the Haunted Mansion. So I'm excited to read that.
And we found out today Rolly Crump is still alive.
He's alive. He's 91.
Oh, wow.
91.
Wow.
Yeah. I hope he watches this. If Rolly Crump watched this and wrote a comment, I'd just cry. I'd just be crying for the
We're
rest
going to
of
try to send him a friend request on Facebook today, but
So yeah, if Rolly Crump, I mean, he's probably my favorite. I know we talked about the aesthetic and everything, but his really did gravitate more towards the weird. And I think that's another wonderful thing about the Haunted Mansion and everything that was created specifically for it that didn't necessarily make it in. It shows up in other places. And that's just, to see all of the heart that people put into that ride. And even if it didn't make it, there are like nods to it or like little pieces that still make it in other places. I think that also speaks to how important the ride was to the Imagineers in general, not just us, but the people who created it. So I'm gonna get misty-eyed. I love me some Haunted Mansion.
A lot of souls went into that ride.
Do what?
A lot of souls went into that ride.
999 to be precise.
Yep.
So, all right. I know that we have a few minutes left, and I've seen some comments and nods to our ghosty grumps and wanting to know more about the singer. Do we have anybody else who has questions? Any closing remarks from our ghost hosts? Now we're the singing busts.
Maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but this just occurred to me while we were in here. Isn't Constance Hatchaway like technically the most malevolent or malicious ghost in it? Like, yeah, I think she's the only one who's kind of even vaguely threatening.
Yeah, we just don't like her. We just don't like her at all.
No.
I don't know. I liked her when she was supposed to be like, she was like really scary looking. Like if you haven't seen like pictures of what the bride looked like, it was pretty intense.
Yeah.
It was probably too intense for the ride.
Well, back then, they also had the pop-up ghost started in the attic, but they were accompanied by screams, and I was a kid when I went on that, so of course I'm like down notice the bride. I don't like the Innocent Blue bride, because when I saw her, and she was in Disneyland, when you go past her, the pop-up ghosts aren't happening, so you just kind of hear the heart beating, and then all of a sudden you see her, and it's just, what is this about? Like, you feel like there's an importance here, but you have no other information about it. So I always looked at that incarnation of her.
Yeah. See, I don't think I've ever seen any of that. So now, we have all this love and knowledge of the ride, and then I come away from it just like going on the ride and seeing something new. I'm like, well, I've got another thing that I need to look up and educate myself on, because there are so many changes and backstories and everything to just about every aspect. Like the Raven, I wouldn't have even, I've been like, yeah, it's a Raven. He's just hanging out being creepy. So.
We Hatbox to come to Disney World and the Nightmare Before Christmas overlay, and that's all I need.
Yeah, that'd be the dream. So, any last remarks? We had no questions. Everybody's like, y'all know everything about the Haunted Mansion. That's fine. So, all right.
Everyone's like, how do I watch this on Facebook?
Oh, let's see.
Oh yeah, we've got
Carolyn, by the way.
This means something to them. It's cool and it's excited to be a part. Yeah, a lot of lore and mystery, and everybody brings something different to it. Everybody sees something different. You may be like, oh yeah, I like that too, but I like it because of this. And so I've had more, I think Christian, I met you at work based off of the Haunted Mansion, because you had your Haunted Mansion mask, and I was like, is that Haunted Mansion?
Yeah. And I was like, have you seen this on Instagram and this merch? And I want to know. We were talking about our trip to Disney World. Yeah, that's how we met.
That's funny.
Come here. You want to be on a panel?
Come on, we're gonna talk about Haunted Mansion. Okay.
Yeah, she did just rush in and be like, hey, we're gonna have a Haunted Mansion panel. You in? And I was like, yes.
That is one thing about this ride, though. It connects people.
It does. It really does.
I'm in a Facebook group just for the Haunted Mansion. If I can, I'm going to share this video to it. So.
Yeah, it's infiltrated like every room in my house, and soon I'm going to start cross-stitching some Haunted Mansion stuff. So that'll be interesting how it just like bleeds into every aspect of my life. So
Yep.
Have like a nail pillow up just Tomb, Sweet Tomb, like on your bed.
Yes, that's one of my projects. I'm gonna do one that's like it's the gargoyle, the candles, and it says "Welcome, Foolish Mortals" in like purple and neon green.
that's the one that I have.
Oh,
Love a cross stitch party. Haunted Mansion cross stitch party. Okay. All right. Well, I think we've hit the 8:00 hour. I hope you enjoyed listening to us banter back and forth as much as we enjoyed doing hours and hours of research that will continue on for the rest of forever, because now I have a whole list of things that I need to go look up. So this was the Haunted Mansion panel, a Sci-Fi Presents event. We will be doing another Sci-Fi Presents in December, so make sure you're following all of our social media outlets. We have Facebook, Instagram, etc., hplsci-fi.com. So make sure you keep up to date with us and see all of the cool stuff we're going to be talking about in the future. So I guess that is good night, and hurry back. Bye.